Let's talk about 1994, Siena with Demetrius Bennerman making it all the way to the Garden in the NIT, and I believe he had set a record in a single game in the NIT with 53 points. Talk about what you remember from that.
That was one of the all-time interesting runs as well. Again, the spring of '94, Rich and I spent a lot of time up in Albany because we were getting ready for the '95 tournament, which we just talked about, the NCAA tournament. And so the NIT knew that Siena would draw. So the first game that they had was an afternoon game on like a Wednesday afternoon against Georgia Tech and Bobby Crimmins. And Crimmins couldn't, A, believe he got sent to Albany, and B, that he had to play at 12 noon on a weekday. But they did. They drew 15 or 16,000 in the then fairly new Knickerbocker Arena, and it was very exciting. Siena, led by Bennerman, who was just an amazing point guard who could shoot from anywhere. They end up beating Georgia Tech. Then they had another home game, which they won, and then to get to New York, they needed they were trying to really get them to New York, so they decided that they'd give them a third home game. Well, that third home game, since the Knickerbocker already had the River Rats or some other function in there, they couldn't open up a date as much as they tried. They ended up going to Glens Falls, New York, and they played Bradley up in Glens Falls, and I'll never forget Tony Baroni and the Bradley people were just incensed that they had to go up to Glens Falls to play. So what happened was Siena wins that game. So they've gotten to New York now, and all the hype about Bennerman and all that was going on. The people in Albany were crazed. Like, all the games up in upstate New York were sellouts. And we get to the Garden, and they hadn't had an NIT crowd like this in a long time. There were 17,000 people in the Garden to see the semifinal matchup. And what happened was Siena had brought 73 busloads of people from Albany, and it was just totally insane. I remember talking with Leslie Visser before the game, and she said, "Where did all these people come from?" And I said, "They all came from the capital region." I mean, that was basically what it was. And Bennerman lit it up, but they lost in the semifinals. But at that time, they still had a consolation game, which Siena ended up winning. So they finished third in the NIT, and it was a lot of fun to watch. They made such a great run, and they were such an exciting team that it really caught New York by storm, and Siena was in the news for about 2 weeks in upstate New York. But when they breezed into the Garden and got 17,000, it really sparked a lot of interest in the big city.